there, Amanda.
Hi, Camber.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I love spending time with you, so I'm happy you're here too. To everyone watching, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to talk about how to use integrations to maximize your productivity and efficiency and increase your fundraising success. Later in the conversation, we'll also bring in Angela Blake to talk about Webhook's functionality, which is a super exciting upcoming functionality for GiveWP. First, we'll do some introductions. I'm Camber. I work for Stellar WP in the marketing department, which is the parent brand of GiveWP. And I mainly work with Give and have the privilege of working closely with Angela, who, as I said, will join us later, and Amanda, who's joining us right now. Amanda is the director of customer success at GiveWP, where she uses her nonprofit expertise and WordPress superpowers to help folks around the world make a bigger difference in their communities. She also treasures spending time with her family, time in nature, studying and teaching yoga, and is apparently a little bit obsessed with Beyonce.
I had to throw it in there.
I didn't know that part.
You didn't?
No, tell me about this Beyonce obsession.
Well, I'm going to be on the Renaissance tour in July. Very, very excited. Yeah, it's just been a long time love, like since early days. And she's just gotten better every year. So
Yeah, that's so exciting that you got tickets.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited. Me and my girlfriend, like we just have like an affinity and a love. Our connection is like the bedrock is Beyonce. So it's a beautiful thing.
I get that. The bedrock and foundation of my longest friendship is Taylor Swift. So
there you go. You get it.
Yeah, I totally get it. Getting tickets to that gave me PTSD though. So I don't know if I don't know.
That was a whole day. Yeah, that's a whole experience.
It was a whole day long thing. Quick housekeeping notes before we jump in. You do have the chat ability. If you are watching, if you have questions, you need clarification, please put that in the chat. I will star them and make sure that we follow up in our Q&A section. Or if you just want to give feedback, that will all be there. As soon as this live stream is over, this video will live forever in its entirety on YouTube. You can always revisit it, and you will also be able to revisit the chat at the same time. So that's why we love these streams. They just live forever on YouTube right after this. So before we start asking Amanda a bunch of questions, I just want to remind everyone watching that today this talk is designed to equip you with the knowledge and inspiration necessary to uncover how integrations and, in the future, webhooks can help you streamline your processes and boost efficiency for your organizations. So, Amanda, first things first, what are integrations? Like when we talk about them, what do they do? What do they mean? How do they work, essentially?
Yeah, there's so many diverse integrations with GiveWP presently, and I'm really excited to see the future for where we're going with future integrations as well as we start to dig into webhooks. But right now, integrations as it stands are any ways that you're connecting your GiveWP donation forms or your donation data to another thing. A lot of times in the most basic functionality, it's connecting to various payment gateways, connecting to things for your newsletter marketing like MailChimp or Constant Contact, and different ways to connect donor data into tools for better reporting. And I say better in terms of extending your understanding of donors and doing something with that information, because GiveWP will provide you with all the information that you need, but then it's up to you what you want to do with it. And that's where the flexibility comes into play with integrations.
Yeah, so it's super flexible because you're able to just like have that communication channel between our platform and some of the other platforms that we integrate with. And that allows for you to kind of like maximize some efficiency. There's a little bit less manual input required for some of these integrations, which is definitely nice, as we know a lot of our organizations are a little bit crunched for time, which is super understandable. We got better things to do than manually input people into our email list. So let's talk about how integrations can enhance fundraising efforts specifically for nonprofits. And I want to start with talking about like communication and marketing efforts. So you alluded to some of those when you talked about like MailChimp, Constant Contact, some different integrations that we already provide. But how do these types of integrations with these like more marketing and communication platforms help nonprofits manage their customer relationships a little bit more effectively, and then also effectively market to their current or past supporters.
Absolutely. So GiveWP is really going to shine when it comes to processing donations, managing the whole donation experience, sending out donation receipts, the PDF and the annual receipts to take the load off of your teams for that kind of effort. So it's all very transactional based, but there's a lot of things that you mentioned, like the before people donate and the after people donate. And that's where integrations with MailChimp, Constant Contact, and things a little bit more elegant or more robust like ActiveCampaign and Salesforce are good examples to take this thing, the strategy that you're trying to accomplish, a step further. Because tools like CRMs such as ActiveCampaign are going to provide you with the ability to have your potential donors in a database, as well as your donors that are coming from GiveWP, so that you can get a feel for who you're communicating with in an email campaign. Because it's important, of course, to send receipts, and that is not where you want the communication to end with your donors. And oftentimes that's not where the communication should begin with your donors either. The first time that they're going to donate to you isn't likely the first time they've ever heard about you, right? They have to hear about you from somewhere hopefully other than just social media and your website. You have some intimate communication with them, usually through a newsletter, to bridge the gap towards a conversion of a donation. And then the follow-up helps reinforce that confirmation that they donated to the cause that means something to them. And there's just so much I could talk about in that, because you can segment donors. You can understand who gives one time versus recurring. You can understand who gives a lower donation amount versus a higher donation amount, which campaigns they're engaging with. There's just so much that opens up when you start thinking about these other tools.
Yeah. And I really do feel like we could do a whole, and maybe we should do a whole stream on just like what it means to segment that data out so that you're like efficiently and effectively communicating with the right cohort of people, right? So it's one thing to send a newsletter out to everyone who's ever interacted with your website, given, visited, signed up, etc. It's another to be able to segment those people out and say, well, they gave one time and they never gave again. How do I reach out to them and kind of like bring them back in? And by integrating with something like ActiveCampaign, where it is tracking those donations and it is allowing you to kind of like break down that donor data, you have the ability to personalize those conversations a little bit more. And we've talked about this in the past in some blogs and various places, that personalization is super important, to donors past, present, not yet donors, because it makes them feel like you're paying attention and you're kind of bringing them to the forefront when you're speaking to them, versus kind of like casting a really wide net and just hoping it lands on the right person. But we talk about that. We talk a lot about donor data. And when I was getting ready for this conversation, I wanted to also include Google Analytics under that same kind of marketing and communications umbrella. So Google Analytics, of course, it's in the name, it's data, it's analytics. It helps you understand a couple of things. And it helps you make informed and data-driven decisions. And many of those decisions, which this is why I decided to include it under that kind of marketing umbrella, relate to how you interact with those same supporters that we were talking about earlier. So can you tell us a little bit more about how Google Analytics, the integration itself, allows nonprofits to further leverage data and improve their fundraising strategies? Because analytics is going to be more website donation or donor form based information, right?
Yeah, totally. So there's going to be like a whole new section in the Google Analytics dashboard when you integrate with our Google Analytics add-on. So you'll see a donations menu right within your dashboard that then will populate some other menus, and it'll give you really in-depth look and feel for how the user experienced the website as they got to the actual donation. The donation form that they actually landed on and ideally converted on. So just getting a feel for the flow in which your donor is going through the website, what pages they landed on first and last, and the journey in between can be really beneficial, because then you have a better understanding of what motivates your donor. And then that data isn't where the story is. the story is how you interpret the data, what you do with it after the fact. But having a tool like Google Analytics in place is necessary to even have an understanding of what is happening. Otherwise, you're taking anecdotal evidence from people that you talk to, which is also important. But the data that you will get from Google Analytics is just going to really give you a good foundation to work from.
Yeah. So something that I hear a lot about Google Analytics from, potential users or through social media or just these various conversations that I have with our users is that there's a disconnect between understanding why they need Google Analytics, because there's an idea that Google Analytics is for folks who are selling a physical product, right? Like that's for e-commerce, but donations are e-commerce. You are making payment online. And so even though donors don't always necessarily receive a physical product in return, that online payment processing works just like any other e-commerce conversion. So that really allows you, when you're talking about some of these different data points that you can see, you can really see what donation form is converting the best. And then you can dig into why. And then you can dig into how do you duplicate that strategy on other donation forms or future campaigns. Have you seen, for instance, like if anyone you've ever talked to, because you work with customers every single day, day in and day out, someone who's using analytics really well to understand how people interact with their site?
Yeah, I see it often when folks are running multiple campaigns, right? So they've got a general donation campaign and then they've got sponsorship campaigns, or they have an event that they're running once or twice a year. And those are more broad net kind of approach where you're looking at all of your campaigns and they have very different things going on. But they'll look at that data year over year to see what happens and how they've tweaked the content and how they've been able to enhance their messaging, the different variations in landing page styles that they might approach. And the best thing that I've seen is when people create A/B testing with their donation forms with different the same campaign. So a general giving campaign that's on two different pages and things that are slightly different. Even just the suggested donation amounts, the number of fields that they're collecting on the form. Like there's so many things that can be tested and it has to be done carefully so that you're not testing too much in one iteration. But that can really do wonders in understanding what the donor experience is and where people are falling off.
Yeah, and that's super important. You bring up the fields specifically on the form, which we know from experience that the more forms or the more fields on a form, the less likely a donor is to convert because they just feel like, oh, there's too much, or I don't understand, why do they need my address? So that's a really great way to just kind of determine like what is absolutely necessary, not only for the donor to convert, but for also you to be able to reach out to them and continue to communicate with them in the future. Or what is something that you can give up? Are you really going to call them on the phone? If not, maybe you don't include that, form or that field on your form. You mentioned sponsorships too. So I immediately started thinking about Piggins and Banks, of course, because they have, 30 pigs that you could sponsor. And I'm going to drop that in the chat if anyone wants to look at it. But that would be such a great way too, to be able to kind of test and see, like, I wonder what it is about this particular pig that you can sponsor that it gets more sponsorships than any other pig. Is it that the storytelling is more intense on that page? Is it the picture is a better picture? It's got better lighting. Is it just that, it's a really there? I sponsored a pig and I did it because she was the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it was so cute. I couldn't stand it. And I had to do it. I was like, look at her. I love her. I don't think that comes across in any data, but that's why I did it. It's so cute. But you have all these different ways of collecting donations and collecting data, and to not have access to that really deep donor data can definitely hold you back from understanding what it is that donors want.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you're kind of making decisions blindly, going off of maybe other priorities, which oftentimes with our nonprofit friends is a lack of resources and what can we get done quickest. And I think that should still be a priority with the data. The data provides you with the information that you need to make decisions a little bit more quickly because you know the path to take for the next campaign that you're running. maybe understanding the difficulties that you had in a prior campaign, or things that will connect with your donors in a more tangible way that you haven't tried before, because you have something that points towards what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit more applied knowledge on the back end as you move through these different kinds of data points and information, which seems like a big, something to take on. But in the end, as you begin to apply it in the future to campaign after campaign after campaign, page, landing page, donation form, etc., it just becomes like second knowledge, and it means that you're probably converting at a higher and higher and higher rate as you take that data and apply it going forward. So like I said, you work with Give users literally every single day in our customer success team, along with our other great customer success folks. But when we're talking about integrations around, marketing and CRM platforms specifically, what kind of things should founders, fundraisers, agencies, devs consider when they're integrating with those types of platforms?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be answering a question that they're going to have of what do they want to do with the information.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, Give is going to provide you with all of the donor data, the donation details relating to recurring payments and the form fields that they're filling out. And utilizing that data is going to be where the solution comes into play of, do you just want to send emails? Are you just concerned with managing campaigns? How elaborate do you need those campaigns to be? What does segmentation of donors look like? And then the question beckons, what are you doing with potential donors?
Mhm.
People that have either dropped off from donating, they donated last year, but not this year. What do you want to do with that kind of data? And how elegant is the solution that's going to help you answer those questions and actually do something with it? That's why I tend to lean towards tools like ActiveCampaign, because I'm very familiar with it. And I know the power that is behind that kind of tool, where you can have a donor record, have a history associated with that contact, and do some really cool things with automations. Whereas a lot of times I'll see people using Constant Contact or MailChimp as a more affordable solution, and that's totally doable. You're just not going to get as much of the donor record and history of a contact as you would in some other CRMs.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a matter of balancing what you need versus what you can afford or feel comfortable spending on a platform.
Totally, because everyone's going to be coming into this at a different level of
Mhm.
what their budget needs are and resource needs are as well, because you have to learn a new tool,
Yeah.
and maybe you get your volunteers or
Yeah.
board members to learn that new tool.
Yeah.
So learning what is going to be good for the next 5 years and then the next 10 years is a different question as well. And there might be some kind of growing that needs to happen, where you start with MailChimp or Constant Contact and then you grow into a bigger CRM because you're ready for something like that.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next point, which I'm glad that you brought it up, is just that sometimes it's okay to start with the option that you're ready for right now, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed. But it's at some point, as your organization grows and your skills grow, or you bring on new volunteers and staff who are able to kind of, carry that platform, it's okay to continue to move forward towards a more, as you say, elegant solution. I really like that wording. I want to shift gears a little bit, and this is going to feel like a jerky moment because we're just moving right into a new section of integrations. But I want to talk about payment gateway integrations, which you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. But GiveWP integrates with a ton of payment gateways. Some of our most popular ones being PayPal, Stripe, Authorize.net, and then of course we have mobile pay integration options, like Venmo and Apple Pay. So let's kind of talk about how organizations should determine which gateways they should use, what to consider when they're making that decision. And then I also want to follow up and talk about why mobile payment gateway integrations are more important than they've ever been before.
Totally. So, I mean, this is the first decision that most of our users have to make when starting to use GiveWP, because if you want to accept donations with Give, you need a payment gateway. And in order to know what gateway is going to best suit your needs, is to know, first of all, is that gateway available for you? Knowing what gateways are available for your organization based on your location and based on your requirements as an organization. The next question would be, what kind of rates do they offer to nonprofits if you're a registered charity? Because things like Stripe and PayPal will provide a discounted rate for processing donations versus regular business payments. So that's a very important consideration, and shopping around for the best rate is often a priority for nonprofits, of course. And looking at other features that they might offer that align with GiveWP, such as e-check, like ACH transactions, the ability to have credit card fields embedded directly on the form, which most of our gateways do. And PayPal offers the opportunity to log in with a PayPal account and donate with your own PayPal account. So there's a variety of different benefits to our different payment gateways. And most of the time, it's not sufficient to have just one. You want to have more than one. The most common pairing I see that I promote is PayPal and Stripe, because you can have the best of both worlds with allowing PayPal donations, credit card transactions through Stripe with a lower rate often than PayPal. And you'll also be able to integrate Google Pay, Apple Pay, and Venmo between those two integrations.
Yep. Perfect. So just so we, for the viewers, we can clarify, when we talk about shopping for a rate, we're talking about payment processing fees that those third-party platforms kind of, put out there in order to process credit cards. So that's not something that Give necessarily has any say over. It is just their payment processing fee, correct?
That's correct. Yep, and every gateway has one. That's not something we can get around.
Yeah, no, I wish it was, but it is not. So while you were talking, you mentioned, the payment processing fees, which makes me think about fee recovery. And then we also talking about like Stripe and some of the other ones makes me think about recurring donations. So while those are not necessarily integrations and they're more features that we provide, they are kind of integration adjacent. And I like to call them revenue boosting tools. That includes, like I already mentioned, fee recovery, recurring donations, and then it does include integrations like gift aid and double the donation. So I want to start with fee recovery and recurring donations because I think that those are like almost like low-hanging fruit for most organizations to be able to kind of like keep a little bit more money, right? So how do those two tools work to maximize fundraising revenue?
Totally. Those are some of our most popular add-ons, and for good reason, because of the revenue boosting quality of them. And it's the reason why folks are able to retain more donors year over year. Specifically with recurring donations, the ability to accept subscriptions is that functionality. Essentially, instead of just accepting a one-time donation on a donation form with Give, you can ask a donor to opt into a monthly, a weekly, annual, quarterly donation. And that can be used in so many different ways. A lot of times folks will use it on a general giving form just to offer, donate monthly, and give that an option, just kind of seeing how that converts on a general giving form. Whereas it's typically more effective when you have a membership focused donation form or a sponsorship related form that is going to get the donor to opt into a monthly contribution automatically. And with our recurring functionality, that is an option for you to play with, of giving the donor the option to donate monthly, or they're forced into a recurring subscription based on whatever parameters you see fit. A lot of times this can be used within a specific time frame of, wanting to accept a certain dollar amount within a certain period of time. Say in a period of 6 months, you want $500 or $5,000.
Yeah.
You can give your donor some different recurring options to choose from to make that possible, and give them some really clear messaging as to, over that period of 6 months, you're going to provide us $500, which is going to do XYZ. It's going to help build a community center. It's going to help sponsor a child and provide them with all they need to go back to school. Whatever the initiative might be, you can be really specific about what the end goal is going to be with recurring donations.
Right. And recurring donations is also super important because it kind of allows you to have a general idea of how much income you are going to have. So if you know that over the course of the next month, you're going to have 10 recurring donations come in for a total of $2,000 every single month, you know that for that year, unless someone cancels, you're going to have a total of $24,000 to work with towards your, your budget or your operating expenses. So that's super helpful to just kind of have this foundation to build upon, and you always kind of know what you're going to get. With fee recovery, so what fee recovery does is there's basically a checkbox, and it covers that payment processing fee from that third-party payment processor, right? So Stripe has a 2 point whatever% fee. They check that box, and it adds that processing fee onto the total so that all the dollars go directly to the organization versus them shaving off of that fee off top, correct?
Exactly. That allows the donor to feel more comfortable and confident that all of their intended donations, say $25, is going to go to that organization at the end of the day, rather than $24 and some change.
Right.
So that can be a really important aspect to people's confidence in donating to an organization.
And again, it helps them know all of their dollars are going to this organization. Plus, it just helps every single organization. If half your folks are opting into a fee recovery, you're saving, depending on how much money you raise, but you're saving thousands potentially of dollars in these payment processing fees, which is just like an instant increase to your fundraising revenue.
Absolutely. And with our tool, you're able to optionally collect the fee or force the fee. So some folks make the fee not optional for higher donation amounts, because the higher the donation amount, the higher the fee.
Right.
So that becomes an important conversation in the levels of donations that you're accepting on your website.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're actually working on writing a thing about donation limits right now. So that's a really good note. I will keep that in mind and make sure I include that. So thank you. So one of the other integrations that's kind of revenue boosting in some way is the double the donation integration, which for me is one of the most fascinating integrations we have, because prior to working at Give, I had like no clue how many eligible dollars go unmatched every single year, which according to double the donation is somewhere between $4 and $7 billion that gets left on the table year after year. That's not like over the course of time. It is every single year, $4 to $7 billion that goes unmatched, which is just like mind blowing. So when we talk about gift matching, and we have some other Give lives in the past with double the donation. So please feel free to go visit those, watch them. Grace is incredible. She does a great job explaining things. But we've talked in the past, and I think one of the main gift matching issues is that typically gift matching policies are like buried somewhere deep in a benefit handbook, and employees simply do not know that their company matches donations. But the fact is that 65% of Fortune 500 companies do offer a matching gifts program, and over 26 million people work for companies with matching gift program. So how does integrating with double the donation make it simple for organizations to like collect these matching gifts?
Yeah, they make it so simple. It's really fantastic. Like I do love Grace's all her demos with double the donation, because it really does take a big concept and breaks it down for folks super simply. And with the Give WP add-on, all that's needed is an additional field where donors can search for their company. So even if they don't know if their company will match a donation, they can search the database that double the donation integrates with our forms directly right there on the form without needing to be redirected anywhere else. And if their company name pops up, then the information will populate on the donation form confirmation, as well as a email with all the information that they need to continue with the match. And that is going to go into the organization's double the donation account with 360 Match Pro to help make sure that that match is completed. So there's automated emails associated with that program. There's lots of tools to make it easy for the organization to make sure that those matching donations are actually completed. And the tools are super powerful. And it actually looks for opportunities even where people might not have put in a match opportunity. So it's a really amazing tool.
Something that Grace mentioned in one of our conversations was someone had asked, well, how long does it take? Once a donor has made a donation, they've identified that their company, does do matching gifts. How long does it take for that payout? And so I just want to mention, while we're talking about double the donation, that's typically directly related to the company. They might have like a plus 30-day payout, a plus 60-day payout, or maybe they do it quarterly. So it's hard to know when you're going to get that matching gift because it is per company. But as to Amanda's point, they do a really great job of ensuring that that matching gift gets completed. And there's a lot of like great automation on that double the donation side. Okay. So I to anyone watching, listening, if there's an integration that you would like us to speak more about in detail, please put it in the chat. I would definitely consider having a whole day just dedicated to one integration or one specific set of integrations. But today we only have an hour and we are already 30 minutes in. So I want to go ahead and move over to talk about something super cool, which is webhooks. So we're going to have Angela Blake join us right now. Whoop. There she is. Hi, Angela. How are you?
Hi, Camber. Doing well. Glad to be here, and I'm really excited to talk about webhooks.
Yay. I'm excited. I think that this is going to be so much fun. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce you really quick. So for anyone watching, Angela's fairly new to GiveWP, but this is her second live stream with me, though the first one did not go great, and we will not talk about that. But Angela has a background in WordPress e-commerce solutions, and she's dedicated to making it easier for nonprofits to get more donations. As the GiveWP product owner, she works closely with our developers and designers to prioritize new features and enhancements that will benefit the nonprofit community. Thank you for joining us today. And before we get like too deep on the topic, what are webhooks and how do they differ from like the standard integrations that we've been talking about today already?
Yeah, so just to begin with, the webhooks it's going to be an add-on that's geared a little more toward the more technical user, right? So you kind of have to understand on a level how to connect this with whatever software you want to be sending data to. You have to be a little bit familiar with that. That being said, it's going to be really easy to do on our end as long as you know what your receiving software needs. I'm already starting to talk in text. So please stop me if I get going too much. So at the simplest level, what the webhooks are going to do is allow you to set up a URL and then select events or actions, basically things that happen at GiveWP, for which you want to send a notification to update data. Mm-hmm. And then each of those actions is going to have a set of data that it will update along with that event. So what happens is maybe, you have someone making a donation and you want to send the donor information, the donation amount, frequency, stuff like that to any other software or system that is able to consume this information. You set up your webhook to do that. Then you go on the other end to that other software. They should have some sort of instruction for you on how to consume that data that's being sent. Mm-hmm. So that's how it works in the very simplest form.
So for instance, when Amanda and I were talking earlier about ActiveCampaign as a CRM, right, where the donor makes a donation, that integration with ActiveCampaign can then pick up that donation and it lives within ActiveCampaign and you're able to see all that donor history. So a webhook works kind of similarly, except that integration piece is missing. So we don't directly necessarily integrate with that CRM. So in theory, what we're talking about is, someone makes a donation, you've configured a webhook between your payment gateway and the other CRM that you use that is not Salesforce or ActiveCampaign. And that webhook allows that data to still be transferred over to that CRM. There's just not a direct integration.
Right. Instead of a direct integration with a specific software or solution, this is more open-ended. You
can build it and tailor it to do exactly what you want it to do versus being constrained to whatever that platform allows you to do.
Right.
Perfect. Cool. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that virtually all platforms allow some version of webhooks to send data into their software side. So with that in mind, why is webhooks kind of like a game changer for how we think about integrations and how we think about like sharing data between different platforms?
So it sort of instantly broadens the horizon for GiveWP users. We get a lot of requests for integrating with different, specific software, maybe HubSpot or MailChimp, different solutions that people might use. Some we already have integrations for and others we don't yet. Instead of waiting for us to develop each of those individual integrations directly with those pieces of software, this opens it up for you to integrate with whatever you want right now, as long as it has the capability of consuming data from webhooks. Okay. So instantly expands that.
Yeah. So just kind of like you said, instead of waiting, like HubSpot is such a good example because I feel like I know so many people that use HubSpot as their CRM, and we don't have an integration with it, but it will kind of allow you to build and tailor it based on the tech stack that you already have or the tech stack that you want to create. And when I say tech stack, I'm just talking about software and platforms, nothing fancy, right. But allows you to kind of just integrate and build out the ideal tech stack for yourself. And then kind of just create this whole world of data and information where everything is kind of talking to one another and doing various things and takes that manual input out of it. So it's still very much like the same idea as an integration, but a little bit more techy and a little bit more tailored.
Right, exactly. And it's just so many fewer constraints there and so much less waiting. And then if you make a change later, you stop using one tool and start using another, you're not restricted to what we've already developed.
Right.
I would say probably the other biggest win here is being able to connect to more automation tools. We already have a Zapier integration, and that's great. Not everybody uses Zapier or wants to use
get
Zapier.
expensive.
Yeah, so we've definitely had requests for integration with other automation tools. This opens it up a lot more because pretty much any automation tool is going to be able to connect with webhooks.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you want to use, Microsoft Power Automate is a good example, would be able to consume that and then potentially connect you to another tool that doesn't, by itself consume those webhooks, right? So if it doesn't have a way for you to connect in that way, you can connect then through an automation tool.
Right. So, and you can do the webhooks with Power Automate, and Power Automate has an integration with that tool that doesn't accept webhooks, and then you can kind of like connect them all together.
Right.
Perfect. That's very cool. I'm going to drop this back in the chat. I did drop it in the beginning, but I'm going to drop this link again. So this is just it's an article called Unlocking the Power of Donation Form Integrations. But if you just scroll all the way to the bottom, zoop, just like that, you'll see that there's just a 2-question survey at the bottom, and it's specifically related to webhooks. So we are currently building this functionality out and getting ready to kind of release it out into the world. But before we do that, it's really important for us to understand like how many third-party systems you're currently using and would like to connect your donation forms to, or systems that maybe you're not using and you're not using them because you don't have there's no integration from us. But maybe you could use webhooks to integrate with it instead. Hook in, I don't know what you would call it. But so just those 2 short questions, we want to make sure that we are creating like the most functional product available for y'all. And so when we ask these questions, it's really just to make sure that we are ensuring that we are giving you what you want, and you're going to be really happy at the end of the day with the product that ultimately does get released. So just the 2 questions, please just scroll in, let us know. And then that way we can, Angela can take it and say, developers, designers, look at what all these people want. And hopefully we can get that done.
Yeah.
No promises.
It's really crucial to have that information too, as much as you can share with us, because webhooks is not the end of integrations for us at GiveWP, it's the beginning. But in order to figure out what we need to integrate with next, we need to know what you all want to use. We have a little bit of feedback in our feedback forums, but we need more information from you. So whatever you can share with us, that'd be great.
I will also drop the feedback link in here. If I can type it correctly, sorry. There we go, I got it. We're just gonna drop it. So Angela mentioned our feedback forums. That is right there. I just dropped it in the link. A lot of what we do when we're considering new features, new integrations, new anything, is we look at this feedback and we determine like what is most wanted, and then what is something that we're able to actually deliver on and deliver on well. And so we take those 2 things, we kind of put them together, and that's how we determine like how we're going to move forward. So I feel like I'm always asking for feedback, but it is very, very crucial for us to ensure that we're giving you the best product possible, to know what you want. If we don't know, we can't build it for you. So make sure you are bookmarking the feedback site. If we send out a form, usually there's a reason for it. Feel free to give us your feedback, but Amanda, before we wrap up, we don't have a ton of questions. We have one or two, but before we wrap up, I'm just curious, from your take as the director of customer success, how you see Webhook's functionality kind of changing the way that Give users communicate and fundraise and not having to wait on like a specific integration necessarily.
Integrations come up so often with various tools in our pre-sale conversations and demos with folks. So this is really going to be an actionable way that we can send our users to a clear path for how they can get integrations done now. A lot of folks are often working with developers or really talented website folks that can really make this happen for them right away. And a lot of folks are coming from other platforms that are our competitors that are looking for the solutions that we're providing. But there's some of these integrations that are absolutely necessary that kind of sway the decision. So this is going to be really helpful for them to get best of both worlds, where they can still use their CRM, still use the donor database management tool that they are already utilizing for their donor communications, and then get the benefits of GiveWP and everything that we have to offer.
Perfect. Do either one of you have anything you want to add? We didn't touch on clarifications you want to make before we answer these next couple questions? No? Okay. Amanda, you said best of both worlds, and Hannah Montana theme song immediately popped in my head, and now it's going to be stuck in my head the rest of the day.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So really quick, we are going to pop back up here, and Bill Crotty has a question. I'm going to go ahead and show this on the screen here, which I believe that Angela will be able to answer this for us. But the question is, are there improvements to the Salesforce integration in the pipeline, like more standard object fields and options to map custom objects without developer support?
Yeah, so I'd say not in the pipeline right now. We do have plenty of requests for things like that on our feedback forums as well. Please use that link that Camber dropped in the chat, because I would love to have those upvoted, new ones added, because it does help in prioritizing those things. So right now we're working more on expanding our integrations. We want to be able to integrate with more things. That's part of what Webhooks is going to be doing, but we do still care about our existing integrations. And if enough people are getting up and saying, we want to see these improvements made to this existing integration, we will weigh that heavily when prioritizing what we work on next. So please do make good use of the feedback forums.
Perfect. Thank you, Angela. The next question is about a Shopify integration. And correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, but I believe that we do not integrate with Shopify, but we integrate with WooCommerce.
Yep, that's right. So we do have a WooCommerce upsell add-on, which will allow you to ask your shoppers to make a donation on top of a shopping cart purchase. So being in the WordPress world, we definitely prioritize WooCommerce and see a lot of WooCommerce users among our customer base. So that's why you'll see an integration specifically for that shopping cart solution. But again, our feedback board is always there to get the understanding of what people need. And I just wanted to piggyback on what Angela said. And the more use case information that we have for things like wanting to use Shopify or needing a deeper integration with Salesforce, understanding how you're going to use that is so crucial. So upvoting is good, and leaving a comment is better. Making sure that we know exactly why this feature is so important really goes a long way. I know that I am looking at every single one of those. I know Angela is, and our developers are as well. So don't think that that's not going into the void. Like we are looking deeply at every comment that's left.
Yeah, they really are. I get in there and I get overwhelmed, but they are on top of it. And they'll also let you know if they are working on something. So if you put feedback in for something, you left a comment, you upvoted, etc. If that thing goes to the betting table and they've selected it to work on our next sprint, someone will come in and say, good news, we're working on this, and then when it's ready, they'll say, good news, it's ready, go update. And then, you'll be right on the money. You don't have to wait for an email from me. You'll know when it's available. So the feedback side is super important. I don't think that we can stress that enough. And while we're at it, I am going to plug one more thing, which is going to be the beta form builder. So if you haven't yet, please do go and take a look at our visual donation form builder beta, which is just like a fun little way to figure out what we're doing next with the forms, which we're using Gutenberg/the block builder to build. And that's another great place that you can give us feedback. There is a feedback loop built right into the beta. So go ahead and use that. I dropped another link in there in case you want to learn more about it. But we really, truly do appreciate everyone's feedback and information and support because it helps us be better for you. So with that being said, those are the only 2 questions I had today. From anyone listening. I appreciate everyone coming and watching with us. And Angela and Amanda, as always, appreciate having you guys on and being able to kind of chit chat with the girls about stuff. But that's that. We're going to wrap it up.
Thank you so much for doing all this, Camber.
No problem. See you guys on the other side.
Thanks,
Bye,
Camber.
everybody.